Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Adrian Duffy. I'm just presenting here our Technology Insights podcast, and today we are joined by a bit of a superstar. We've got Ania McLaughlin from StoneX, and we're going to cover a very interesting topic, something very, very dear to Ania's heart, and something we're very interested in a business as well. And it's tackling sort of the misconceptions of leadership within the IT industry, some of the nuances, the overlap maybe between other industries, and what specifically it takes to be a leader within IT. So, Annie, if you could just maybe just give us a brief overview of yourself.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today with you guys, and for the audience that's going to be listening to it, I hope that you'll find it valuable. And thank you for the invitation. I joined StoneX just a year ago as a role of a general manager, and I actually am a newcomer to the technology space. I'm not a newcomer to the leadership perspective because I have several years in that space, including some of the banking industry, fintech industry, and then the subject is exciting. I feel that there's lots to talk about, so let's just dive right in.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. Okay, let's go. Yeah, as you said, let's get straight into it. So, what would you feel are the some of the common misconceptions about leadership in the IT industry?
I think in the IT industry, one of the most common misconceptions is that the strongest technical leader is the best leader, that equals good leadership, right? Technical expertise. And that's understandable because when folks are starting their career, they're really, really good technically, right? And that's how they get noticed. They have these great products that they deliver, and then it's very, very visible. And so we automatically assume that is required to be a good leader. But as you and I know, leadership is so much more than just technical acumen, right? The technical knowledge is very important, but the leadership requires things like empathy, communication, strategic thinking, the ability to actually go from being the doer to being the enabler, to being somebody that's actually able to create an environment where we can get the team to deliver those results, right? So that is the most common misconception that I see, and that we go from being the go-to person to all of a sudden saying, okay, well, I really need you to be able to do this, right? So another misconception that I see is that the leader has to have all the answers, right? That the leader is like the go-to person and you need to know what you're talking about and you cannot ever make mistakes. And we're kind of are afraid of the vulnerability and admitting mistakes, where I think it's a really slippery slope, because if we can actually admit that there's a problem, that there's a mistake, that we're not that we don't have all the answers, it actually creates trust within the team. Right? Because we have to get rid of that idea that we have all the answers, that we're the only ones that need to drive innovation, for example. I think we need to foster it. I think we need to encourage it. But I think we need to be able to embrace the fact that we're no longer the subject matter expert. We now need to encourage others and develop others, right? And then, those are the most important things that I see. And having, assuming that the leader knows everything, it's really not something that we need to continue and then foster, right?
It's I suppose just any that type of mindset, you're kind of setting everyone up for a fall to a certain degree, and it's interesting when you mention about the ability for a leader to be able to be open and say, look, this is not my key area, but we can coordinate, delegate, put the right people involved who can give you the right types of answers. That's a quality that's is overlooked, I think, sometimes in a lot of different industries. And most people would generally think, especially with the way work and industries have been for such a long time, that by admitting to those things, you're actually not gaining the trust, you're losing the trust, and I think that, that has to change from the leadership perspective, but also from the perspective of an employee, what they need from a leader. Sometimes that has to change, because you will have your employees who are still expecting their leaders to know everything. And once they don't, they will lose their trust or belief in their leadership style, right? Especially in industries like IT, when you say yourself, generally it's so technical that the brightest minds, the most technical minds are generally the ones that employees would gravitate towards, because they, people want to learn from leadership, right? As well, most importantly, when I think about my career, people that helped shape my career were leaders that I could mirror to a certain degree, copy as well, because human behavior, this is how we learn, this is how we develop, we copy, we mirror, and things like that. So that's quite an interesting turnaround. But maybe a slightly different question. And how do we change the mindset then, maybe, of what employees need from their leaders, what they think they need from their leaders?
So the employees need to understand that leadership is a little bit more than just the technical skills, right? Now, leaders do need to have a grasp of the technical industry. It's easier to communicate with the stakeholders. It's easier to communicate with the team. It's easier to make informed decisions. But really, the objective of leadership is to make sure that you develop others, that you foster the creativity and the innovation. But also, when you put a few minds together, there's a bigger strength than just one leader who has all the answers, right?
Yeah,
and
like a dictatorship almost.
Dictatorship, exactly. And then it's more about saying, hey, I know that I may, be able to deliver the results here faster, or I'm going to be able to get there as I think is the best way. But it's not about that. Leadership is about actually empowering others. It's actually about making sure that you give others an opportunity to shine. It is creating the showing them also the fact that you need to be adaptable, showing that you need to have that mindset of openness and being agile, adapting to certain things, having, this is such a broad subject. It's really, really hard for me to give you everything, because I could talk about it for a long, long time. But
yeah, we haven't even touched behavioral psychology as well, and how that comes into it as well, But
exactly.
Yeah, no, of course.
Communication is the key. Communication is the key to say, hey, this is my expectation for you. Or if, the dialogue is exceptionally important, because folks may not understand that, hey, I'm not going to give you all the answers. I'm going to be your mentor. I can be your coach, but it's actually my job is to make sure that you give me the results, that you start thinking, that I don't give you the A to Z kind of answers, but it's more about the fact that I need to prepare you for what if I'm not there. Can you handle it on your own, right?
Yeah. And it's very much like we're doing, we've just had a couple of training days for management within our company, and the focus on the two management training days, they're called, but what we're learning, or what we're fine-tuning, is actually coaching. And this is sort of what you're talking about here, ultimately. It's about bringing people to the realization that they have the abilities to do things, giving them the opportunity to succeed, but also to fail, so they can learn, and then they can succeed from that, right? So it's a very interesting perspective on it, and there's so many different opinions when it comes to leadership, and I think that the merger of what is leadership, what is management, what is coaching is a bit blurred as well, because there are different sort of soft skills approaches that really identify what sections they go into, but it's really impressive, very interesting stuff. I suppose one of the other things I'd really like to know as well is, like, do you see anything specific in terms of leadership qualities needed in the IT industry that would be different from other industries? Like, I know you said you spent quite a bit of time in banking in leadership roles. Maybe let's use that as a base to kind of compare can you see anything different in terms of qualities?
Definitely. Yeah. So I think in any industry, to be quite honest with you, it's really, really good to be able to make decisions that are data driven. But I think for example, and then again, we haven't touched upon that because
No, no.
from,
That's another
from
podcast, a different
that's
day.
another. But the whole thing of leadership is that you need to be really good at problem solving, but also allow the others to problem solve on their own, right? Communication, strategic thinking. And I think going back to that data-driven decision making, in IT, it's very, very important because what we're talking about is optimizing things like, I don't know, service performance, or we're talking about analyzing
Efficiency,
user
productivity.
behaviors,
Yeah.
efficiencies. And so the leader needs to be able to be comfortable with KPIs and needs to be able to be comfortable with it using the metrics so that they can make the strategy decisions making processes using that. That's one thing. Additional thing is because IT world is so specialized and so complex and changes so quickly. If we want to be competitive, we need to be able to follow it, right? And so understanding of IT for leadership is exceptionally helpful.
Yeah.
One thing that I imagine as being one of the key skills is the ability to communicate complex ideas to stakeholders that are not technology driven. So customers a lot of the time, senior executives that are signing off on the projects, right? We've got so many different employees that are working on the projects, the communication aspect to say, hey, I need to communicate technically with my team, but I need to be able to translate that complexities into other stakeholders that may not understand the language of that we're talking.
The term layman's terms comes to mind a lot, right?
Definitely, definitely,
yeah.
right? So I
Because
mean,
you
I
run the
want to be
risk. Sorry, you run the risk then of either appearing condescending to people that might not understand it, or and people can quite easily get offended, especially if they're in a very, very senior position. They're probably controlling the budget behind this project, and you're baffling them with technical stuff that they don't know. It might not be a great way to build or maintain a relationship with that purse holder, should we say,
Yeah, definitely. So if we were to talk about banking, one of the other things that I'm thinking about that's very different is, banking is very, I don't want to do an injustice, but it's a little set, right? It's formed by regulations, right?
Yeah.
Whereas IT, you need to innovate constantly. You need to have that innovative mindset, and not that you need to come up with every innovative solution. You need to foster that and have that continuous learning mindset with your team. Tell them, hey, I need you to have an open mind. It's like, unlike some traditional industries, the processes may be static, like in banking or in others. In IT environment, it requires experimentation, it requires creativity, it requires the freedom and that willingness to take risks.
Yeah. Trial and error as well, no?
Exactly. And you know what, in creating that environment where it's okay to do that, right? I mean, one of the things that I look at from my perspective as great leadership is allowing the team to make mistakes and having their back, right? Having the ability to say, it is so I mean, it's a notion that if there is a glory, then you open the door and then you share that with everybody. Hey, look, the team did it. But when there's an issue, you just say, hey, that was my bad. I did something different. We should have done something different. I should have given you guys a different direction and things like that. So that is that, but that's a totally different ball of wax. It's more of a, hey, there are certain things that you're going to do that people watch you as a leader. They will try to emulate that. You're going to be able to be a mentor to them. They're going to, if they have that trust that you're going to have their back, they're going to be more open to innovate at the same time.
Yeah, take ownership as well, which is quite because people really value that, isn't it? And also, because you hear so much, especially on our side of the fence, we're speaking to people every day who are leaving jobs for all sorts of reasons. One of the ones, there's a million there's probably a good couple of hundred reasons why people leave jobs, and they're all the same no matter where you are in the world. There's only a
Yeah.
few of them, and one of them is generally, people are taking credit for work that we're doing. We're not being showed the,
Yeah.
we're not receiving the
Recognition.
feeling that we've achieved something, because as soon as we do something good, then the management takes responsibility of that, and they're like, "Oh, look what I did," and then the team kind of gets left behind, and it's becoming more rare. It's not happening as much as a reason why people are moving on, but it's still something to be well aware of, and you're right. It's you get so much more from your employees when they know you're behind their back. They're being credited for the work that they do. And you take ownership and responsibility when things don't go well, because ultimately it's your guidance, your strategy that has probably led to something either sinking or swimming.
But listen, leadership is not for everybody because it's a lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah,
And people, it's not all glory. It's all just saying, hey, a leader is a person that steps ahead where nobody has been there before, right? It's kind
yeah,
of opening a path for everybody else to follow. It's not easy. Leaders make mistakes too. Leaders are just people. And
yeah,
so admitting the mistake is going to create that say, listen, we tried, it didn't
yeah,
work. Let's dust it off and let's just move on, right? What can we learn from it? It's just how you lead and how you react to failures also shows it to the team, right? That differentiates bad leaders and micromanagers from actual leaders.
yeah.
And I shouldn't be calling a leader because not everybody's a leader and not everybody with a title is a leader. Sometimes you can find leadership qualities in the team members that is just, it's about action. It's about showing, it's about connecting people. It's about making it so that people want to stay. And one of the things that I noticed in my company is, people say it's great technology and it's great people. If you can learn from one another, if we can progress forward, then that's a place where you want to stay. I had a discussion in my previous company, not this one, with an HR manager. It was a few years back. And the feedback was that one of our key developers was getting 5 to 7 phone calls a day trying to be poached, because it's like, we're not super special. We have to create a value to be able to keep these people. And they were able to do that, but it doesn't just come with nothing, right? There's so many different spaces where folks can move because it's technology space is highly desired.
Yeah, yeah, of course, definitely. Yeah, no, thank you. Some interesting points there. And obviously, in the last year or so, where you've been in this particular space, you've probably watched or been involved in some technical staff, IT staff, more technical people that have moved into more leadership roles. To support you and the company as well. What would you say was probably the most difficult mindset shift, should we say? Sorry, for them when going into league. Where do you think maybe they struggled a little bit, or what had to change in personality, character, in order to go from just technical focus to leadership?
I think it's in every industry when you're a subject matter expert, going that leap into leadership or management can be quite tricky because a lot of the times folks get promoted because of their technical acumen or because of they're really, really good at what they do they add value, right? And all of a sudden it's not, and I mentioned this today even before, it's a shift from being I need to do this, so being a doer, into I need to enable somebody to do this, and I need to be able to create an environment where people want to do it. And so it's kind of delivering value through others. And one thing is letting go of being an expert. It's no longer people come to me because I have all the answers. It's more of okay, well, how would you solve that? It's kind of like you're looking at it, it's like, I know the answers. I need to do this. And it's like, it's the wrong thing to do. You have to activate the team, right? And it's that also that shift of you're going from tactical, I need to solve this problem, I need to deliver the code, into strategic thinking. Is what we're doing aligning with the company goals? Is what we're doing going to deliver the value to the customer? Are we creating something for the sake of building, or
Yeah.
are we creating it for the user, whether internal or external?
Yeah.
Right. And so that way of thinking is that mindset is really, really tough.
Yeah, it's almost like
And
you have
then,
to elevate yourself above your core thinking at this level, and then to another level where you're like, okay, now my overview is bigger, so I need to
yeah,
consider more things.
that too. But I think it's a human nature that we think, especially if we're technical experts, that we're going to be able to do everything better,
Yeah,
faster. And it's kind of hard to let go of that, and kind of say, hey, I am giving you this work to do. I'm trusting that you're going to be able to do this. That's really tough.
yeah,
It's really tough to say, hey, I know you can do this, and watching somebody make mistakes is even harder. Like,
yeah,
you know how to get
yeah,
there.
and the restraint of helping them, right, and having to
Oh gosh,
restrain
yes.
yourself.
It's like, give it to me. I'll just,
Yeah,
but it's the wrong thing to do. You will never teach people how to run on their own if you won't
yeah,
let them walk, right? So you have to give them tools, or you have to challenge them. And part of the things that is really, really hard for leaders, especially in IT, is because when you are delivering code, delivering product, delivering something, a project, it's very tangible. You can see it. It's like, here you go, look at this. But leadership, it's building, it's communicating. It's hard to measure a lot of the times.
yeah.
So people are like, well, what value am I delivering
Yeah,
here
yeah.
right
Or
now?
how do I show my value, right? Because ultimately you can, if the business is doing really well and making lots of money, or the products are great or whatever, you can show that as your value. And then if it's not working, you can show, but if the business isn't doing great, but you're still doing a good job, or you've taken the business from a really bad place to a slightly better place, yeah, like you say, what data can you bring to the table to show that you've created that, it must be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had and this wasn't taken from the IT industry, but I had an aha moment that actually allowed me to go into leadership, and I found it very fascinating. It was a customer service manager who
Okay.
just got promoted. And one of my coworkers at the time said, well, you can go and move on because, everything here is working perfectly well. I mean, we've got this. And she smiled and she just said, listen, it's working great because somebody's watching it 24/7, right? And it's more of a,
Mm.
hey, you need to be able to take care of the team, to take care of the processes. Somebody has to take responsibility and drive it. And this was more of a, hey, there's a lot more work because leadership is not static,
Yeah.
especially in IT industry. It's not like you learned it once and then there we go. Things
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
people change.
Yeah.
We've got different demographics working in one space. It's a different approach to people.
Mm.
So lots of certain things that may be difficult. And leaders are, again, I'll repeat this again, leaders are people too. They learn too. They make mistakes. They have good days, they have bad days. They're not always just, on top of it. So you need to create that trust within the team that you have the team's back, but the team has your back too, that they
Yeah.
can notice, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah.
So
And the ability also to, because these big organizations, you're not leading directly 2,000 staff or whatever, right? There are
yeah,
there are leaders below that need to lead in their own departments and stuff like that. So being able to identify those people that can support what you're doing, the
yeah,
right similar mindsets, the people that have those similar soft skills, that's
yeah.
so important to the wider success of their own teams and further down the leadership board, should we say? It's really important. Good people, right? You need good people in order to.
Definitely.
Yeah,
That is very, very key. And that is something that gets often overlooked, that one person cannot change the mindset. It's a work of other leaders in the company, right? We
yeah,
need to be able to constantly want to strive for being better. And then, you talked about good leaders. a lot of people don't even understand what a good leader is until they step into that role. I don't think that there's enough discussions about the fact that leaders need emotional intelligence to be able to figure out, what the team is all about and how to motivate others and how to manage conflict and how to build strong relationships, because that's very, very important with the team, with the stakeholders and everything else.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I see as a key skill for folks that are going into the leadership roles, right? So that is something that is exceptionally important. And technical leaders, when you're becoming a leader from being a subject matter expert, a technical IT lead, is not something that anybody ever looked at, right? It's not a
No, of
competency
course.
anybody needed. It's like, are you empathetic? No. Are you good at
Yeah.
building? And
Yeah.
are you good at,
Yeah.
writing code? Is your
Well,
code?
they're not on the job description, some of these things as well,
No.
and that's the problem,
It should be.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But listen, look. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today. But we'll join us shortly for part two. We're gonna continue this. So thank you very much for your time, and yeah, join us again. We'll finish up this session in a few moments. Okay.
Excellent.